Hey everybody, welcome to another What the Tech. This is episode 88. I'm Andrew Zarian. I'm joined by the returning Paul Thurrott. How you doing, Paul?
Hey, how you doing?
We just spent about 45 minutes doing a show before we started recording.
I know. We're pretty much done, actually, so it was good talking to you.
I don't know who it was, but somebody, an emailer wrote, Paul makes you into such an angry tech person.
Yeah, it's me. I did the same thing to my wife. I think it's a constant of my relationships. You know, I take normal, happy people and I beat them into a sullen, dystopian future.
But you have a point. I mean, listen, I get a lot of emails from viewers. You know what I've been getting a lot? A lot of people have been saying, you were never this biased.
Wow.
Towards Android.
Towards Android.
Towards Android.
That I have no problem with.
No,
I am comfortable with that.
With the Android stuff.
With Android bias, yeah. Anti-Android bias. That's okay.
We're going to get into it. There's some stuff I still like, and there was a big announcement today. Paul was away last week. Paul was traveling Europe.
Yep.
How'd it go?
It's good, except for the connectivity was awful. Actually, the wireless phone stuff was fine. It was good even. But, you know, I needed to write news articles every morning and get a couple things done for work. And in both of the locations we were at, the wireless, you know, Wi-Fi wireless was unbelievably bad. It was like going back in time.
What was the the speeds like over there? Where?
Well, they're non-existent in one location. I mean, in the first place we were in Paris, I had to go down to the hotel lobby to use the wireless because it was non-existent in the room. It would not work at all. And then we stayed in a bed and breakfast in London, and these guys had some ancient form of wireless that had like web encryption and.
Oh wow.
It would work occasionally in the room, but usually not. And I'd have to go down. They had like an eating area, and then there were times where there were people having a meeting, so they didn't really want me hanging around in the room. And I'm like, well, I got to get work done. I mean, you know, don't you have some room I can just sit in? And they didn't.
That's
really,
hysterical.
It was just.
Well, there's a lot of hotels here. The best hotel I've been to was in Aruba. I stayed in Aruba at the Marriott casino. It was a beautiful hotel, and they had. I think it was like 25 megabit down and like 20 up. And I was blown away that this tiny little island destroyed any hotel I've stayed in the States with Wi-Fi.
Oh, I saw an ad it would have been in France because it was in French, for a home. It was fiber-based internet access, and the starting speed was 100 megabits per second.
Holy
and
cow.
I was reading it. And the guy I was with, Jeff, he said, you know, he's like, what's the matter? And I said, you know, this is for a service that is 4 times faster than what you and I have at home, but we both have Fios.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that scary?
And yeah, and I find that slightly irritating, especially since the hotel I was in was obviously on like a DSL connection of some kind. But it's amazing. You know, we tend to think of ourselves as being at the forefront of everything in the United States, but in many areas, actually, that time is long gone. And certainly when it comes to internet access, when you look at all of the countries in the world, I mean, I'm sure well, I shouldn't say I'm sure. I suspect we're in the top 10 somewhere, but we're in the bottom of the top 10, that's for sure.
Yeah, I believe South Korea is first. I think I did a thing on this a couple months ago. I was going through
this
like
sounds like something we might have talked about.
South Korea's first. I think Norway, Sweden.
Singapore's got to be up there.
Yeah.
I bet a lot of Europe is up there.
But, you know, but the other thing is, you know, these are a lot smaller. These countries are tiny. Their infrastructure is a lot newer than ours. And they don't really have to deal with
don't make
the politics.
Excuses for the aging superpower.
I know. But we also have a lot of politics that go hand in hand with installing lines. Fios to be installed in New York City. By the way, it's been halted. They've stopped Fios deployment here in New York. Because of some legal problem they're having. But when they okayed certain areas of it, it was a huge thing to get the city to okay it. They had to pay to the city. They had to make sure they're not going to do certain things to Time Warner lines, and then Time Warner was cutting the lines. It was a whole thing. I mean, it was the worst experience ever. But now that it's here, I'm one of the few. But if you go across the street, they don't have Fios, but I do.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, that's how wacky it's gotten here.
Yeah.
So
we had Fios before they had internet access. So at the time, you could only get the TV, and so I don't remember exactly what we did.
And ours was backwards. We could have the internet, but not the TV.
But the second they added that, I was all over it. I think they did phone and internet at the same time, and we just grabbed it all.
We were before the show went on the air. We were discussing how they've agreed upon, and by they I mean I don't know who they is.
The Star Chamber,
the ITU. I guess that's a group that agrees on these things. They've agreed on the standard for ultra high def, and my point is, before you move on to something like this, why not say, hey, high def HD development and HD deployment of these channels has kind of slowed down the last couple of years. Let's get E in HD first. Let's get the history channels, fifth channel in high def. Let's work our way up to ultra high def. They're saying it's going to be they're going to be testing it. They're going to be doing public screenings of it at the 2012 Olympics.
Right.
So it's soon.
Well, see, that's where this would make sense, right? In an outdoor stadium type of thing where you would have some ginormous screen.
Sure.
But man, the bandwidth that this must require.
Oh, it has to be out of control.
It's hard to even comprehend.
Well,
so UHD TV, I'm looking at Wikipedia. This says it's 7,680 by 4,320.
I saw that, but I think that's for like 4K.
Yeah, so there's different versions of it. That resolution I just read off is 16 times the resolution of HD TV today. IMAX has roughly the same resolution as UHD TV. That says. So actually, they must be recording stuff at this resolution somewhere. Yeah. Wide quad high definition is 2560 by 1440.
I could just see the disaster happening before they agree on a standard and everybody starts following the same thing. We're gonna have stuff like, remember like the enhanced ED TVs? Do you remember those?
Yep.
Where people were buying them thinking they're high def TVs, but they weren't. It was just progressive scan TVs.
Yeah, they were just TVs that were probably pretty good for DVD.
Yeah, that's all it was.
Yeah. So
it was a whole mess. But I do want to go to some news that has hit while you were gone and this week. Skype's I guess acquisition has been finally approved with Microsoft. Yep. And we have discussed this in the past, but I did want to run an idea by you because I said this on the show last week, and I got a lot of emails saying, I don't know if Microsoft wants to enter in that business. I think this is a perfect opportunity for Microsoft to get into the teleconference business on a grand scale.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think this is something that they're going to use Skype for? I mean, they have different ways of communicating. Their VoIP services are kind of spread out. You have the live service that they're using. You have the Xbox Live service, which I believe is different than the Messenger service, right?
Yep.
They have Links, I believe it's called.
Link, yeah.
Link, they have it, and they have Skype now.
Right. So how do they?
Are they going to merge them all?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I've asked Microsoft this stuff, and they refused to talk about it before the purchase went through. And I literally just talked to the Link guys in Boston. 2-3 weeks ago, whatever it was. And I asked, at the time, I think the FCC had okayed it, but the European Union had not.
And they
still wouldn't really talk about it. But there are a couple things going on that I think provide some hint. I think that Skype is going to be infused through all of their stuff. I think you're going to see Skype logos and buttons in everything, in Windows, in Office, in all of the Office ribbons.
I mean, theoretically, why would you? Because Skype's technology is a lot better, especially with the audio. I've tried Microsoft's Messenger, better quality.
Better than what? Than what Microsoft already has.
Better than than Messenger.
Yeah.
I've used Messenger a couple times, but it seems like with Messenger, it's on this delay thing where if I'm talking and you're talking, nobody could hear each other.
On it, Sarah, I take a pretty hard stance on this kind of thing, and this is not what Microsoft will do. But if I were Microsoft, if I were the one calling the shot here, I would get rid of Windows Live Messenger.
Okay.
And I would replace it with Skype, the Skype client. I would make that the client.
You mean the entire Messenger? Dump the entire... Kill it. Okay.
And you couldn't just do it right away. You'd have to put some of the stuff that's missing. I think that I use Messenger a lot, and I can't say that I like it. I don't like the way it's evolved in the sense that it's packed on all these features. I just want to use the thing to type text to somebody. But as a result, I use Skype for video and I use Messenger for text. And I don't like the way that Skype handles text messaging right now. In fact, every once in a while, if you or somebody else sends me or type something in there, I actually don't see it sometimes. And so I think what they should do is bring the best of Messenger. And there's not much in that list, believe me, but the stuff that does work in Messenger well.
See, and I think it also is a regional thing and it's a generational thing on who's using Messenger, because I was brought up using AIM, and I've always used AIM, and everybody I know uses AIM. But
right, and that's an interesting way to look at it. I think of it more along the lines of just where are your friends on? You know,
what are your friends on?
I only use Windows Live Messenger because that's what the people I know use. I can't stand Windows Live Messenger.
The video, they have very good high-def video. Their video looks phenomenal in Windows in Messenger. I really like it, but Skype does a much better job. So what I could see them doing.
But that's the consumer thing. So obviously they have to put it into the Xbox 360
because their system now is not good.
Where I'm playing a game, and Skype knows that I'm online playing a game, and you on a PC can see that that's what I am doing, and I can talk to you in a little window while I'm playing the game if I want to. You know, they need to have that kind of integration. I think that that's where that stuff is going. Where it gets tricky is with the enterprise stuff, because Link, which is a new product, and essentially maybe I guess the third version of what used to be Office Live Communicator, is actually fairly mature and sophisticated, and I actually like that client a lot better than Windows Live Messenger. It's very clean. It doesn't have great integration with the Windows Live Messenger service, which is why I don't use it.
But it's still using the same technology as Windows Live Messenger.
It's a little more sophisticated than that.
As far as the video, like the video and the audio?
Yeah, it could, yeah.
Okay.
But it does a lot of the screen sharing stuff, application sharing. It has, the presence information. It integrates with all the Office server products like SharePoint and so forth. So there's a lot going on there. I don't think they're going to get rid of Link, but Skype does have this kind of, I don't know what to call it. It's like the ability to replace your telephone.
Sure,
which
yeah.
Link sort of does not have, at least not in the online service version. In the if you buy the Link server and you put it in your business, you could actually replace a phone system with it.
The reason why I'm really excited about the merger, and a lot of people were saying, when they announced it, I was very excited for it, and I got emails saying, this might be a bad thing for the consumer. This might be a really bad thing. You might have, they might kill it, which they would never. They might start charging you for it, and I said, I want them to start charging me. And I'll tell you why.
I don't know.
I want a pro level version. I want corporate. I want enterprise support, and I would love. You keep the free service, sure, but why not try to compete with Citrix and all these other services?
They sort of do have that, don't they? Don't they have a? I've never.
For Skype, no. They have the premium, and you know what that allows you to do? Like 4 windows, but it's still on the same servers as everybody else. You could do like up to 10 video conferences. But
so you're talking like dedicated bandwidth almost.
Yeah, like almost like you're on a better server. You get higher quality video, so you could flip the switch if I want high def. You get better audio quality. I know to some people this doesn't matter, but to certain people it does.
Well, it would for businesses.
It would.
Absolutely.
I mean, I would love to see something like that.
I don't see. Well, I shouldn't say. Who can say? Microsoft does have a way of mucking things up, and you could imagine multiple versions of it, and maybe one of them could be this thing that you're asking for, and one could be a business account or whatever. But I think the first step is just getting this into everything and kind of infusing it. I wouldn't be surprised to discover somewhere down the line there'll be a blog post, and Skype is going to be part of Windows 8. Mm-hmm. And Skype will be part of Windows Phone, and Skype will be part of the Xbox. I mean, those things all make sense. And the reason I think that is how it's going to go is because Skype became its own division, which is kind of crazy. Skype is a division at Microsoft, just like Windows is. This is
which is bizarre, right?
Citizen. Yeah, it's not part of online services or something.
So there might be a bigger picture. I mean, there might be something that we and I'm sure there is something we don't know, but they might be planning on doing a full deployment of this. Have Skype as who knows what.
I just think we're going to see Skype everywhere.
I could even see them creating, devices for enterprise and just having, the UI as Skype. Have the user interface called Skype and have, whatever, Microsoft Skype, and have that specific type user interface for these product lines.
Right.
I could see them doing that. But it is interesting, and it did pass, and I'm hoping that they get a lot of they put a lot of effort into this, and they really grow it into something that it isn't. And by that, I mean charging me for premium support.
Well, I just hope they don't screw it up. And by screw it up, I mean, they screwed up Messenger, in my opinion. I think they put too much stuff on top of it, and it's this big, heavy thing that does not have to be that way. And I wish, you can't even revert it back to something simpler. So I hope they don't overload the Skype UI and overload the client with a bunch of extra crap. So, well,
Microsoft has been very aggressive with the Xbox. So I do see the first thing that it's implemented in is definitely the Xbox. I mean, this new dashboard that they unveiled, it's stunning, and they're doing the IPTV. This is one of the missing keys, right?
Yep. The only thing I'm worried about with the Xbox 360 is that if you think about somebody just sitting there in front of it, maybe in the living room or whatever, you're navigating around. Obviously, Skype would work fine. If you want to sit there in front of your TV and have a video conversation with somebody, that's going to work. If you want to watch a movie that's streaming over the internet and have a conversation with someone over video, will that work? I probably, the scenario I talked about earlier where you're playing a video game and a little Skype thing pops up, that may actually be beyond the processing power of the Xbox 360.
Xbox. Yeah, because this is 4 years old at this point.
Yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, we'll see how far it goes. I hopefully it can be as seamless as I sort of dream it to be, or whatever. But it may be, the worst case scenario, and unfortunately the most likely scenario, is that Skype is essentially an app on the Xbox 360. People don't think about these things as apps, but they really are kind of apps.
Mm-hmm.
When you run Netflix on the Xbox 360, it's an app. It's a standalone experience.
And that's the worst case scenario, because you need it. I think in order for it to be successful on this platform, on the Xbox, it needs to be fully integrated.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So hopefully it's more than that. At the very, very least, you would expect to be able to run Skype, log on to the thing, and talk to people. I mean, if they're smart, I'm doing this off the top of my head, but there are communications capabilities built into the Xbox 360. One of the things I do not enable is that when you log on, you could be logged on to your Windows Live Messenger account. And so people can send you text messages and so forth, and you would actually get them on the console. It's been so long since I've done it, I can't even imagine what that looks like. But I turned that off on purpose. But hopefully Skype is in there too as an option, or replacing Windows Live Messenger, which would be even better. Where no matter what you're doing on the console, you have that opportunity to communicate with other people via Skype. That's how I imagine it to be. But there's a part of me that wonders, again, if the Xbox just isn't getting a little old technologically for that to be possible. So I guess we'll find out soon.
Well, now that we're talking about the Xbox, a couple weeks ago, and I haven't spoken to you since it was announced, they announced the IPTV integration and the integration with the cable companies, and this beautiful new dashboard with the tiles. It's beautiful. But has there been any updates on what's going to happen with this integration? Because we are almost here. I mean, they're saying November 18th or November 19th as a launch date.
Yeah.
I read somewhere, or second week in November. So we're almost here to this thing, but we don't have any information if it's going to cost you extra, what channels are going to be available. So pretty much nothing. We just know that they're going to work with the cable companies, but to what extent, we're not too sure yet. So
based on emails I've received from people who live in other countries where they have things like this already.
Yeah, in the UK, Sky is fully integrated.
The way that this works is that some content will be available over IP, meaning over your Xbox Live connection over the internet for free. Mm-hmm. They'll have some content like that. Some of it may or may not require an Xbox Live Gold account, by the way, in the similar fashion to Netflix requiring that. Some of it will require you to have an account somewhere. For example, the Sky TV you mentioned, those people have to be subscribers to that service to get Sky TV through their Xbox 360. So as I'm a FiOS person, so Fios is one of the one of the partners that is here. So what will I get as a Fios customer through this service? It's actually not clear. I mean, that's something that Verizon will probably have to announce. This service is going to differ a lot depending on who your not broadband, but your TV provider is.
Yeah, because I believe Xfinity has said that they're only going to do on-demand channels and movie rentals, while Fios has said that they are going to have their channels and live TV, select live TV available.
Yeah, so when I look at looking at the way that Fios works on the the cable box or whatever we have now, if all they did was put on-demand content on there, and there was some intelligence to it, where they knew that I was a subscriber to HBO, so I got the HBO on demand through this thing. That would be okay. That would be pretty good. The ability just to do general on demand, like rent a TV show, or rather usually a movie, I guess, on a Friday or Saturday night, but use the Xbox 360 instead of the I keep calling it a cable box, but whatever that set-top box is called.
Yeah.
Would be fine. That's okay. I think the goal here, which is the same goal that Google had with Google TV, is the integration bit, where what you should have is some sort of media center style interface where it's sort of what's on tonight. And it can be a combination of live stuff and then your on-demand possibilities, which would vary, again, depending on who your provider was.
There's pretty much no way of integrating it the way that Google's integrated, right?
No, because what Google does is the video version of screen scraping.
Okay.
It's sort of unsophisticated. The end result is it's something desirable. I get it. It's what I just described. This notion that you can sit down in front of the TV and with your remote, derive content that comes from all these different places. You have Netflix and you have Hulu and you have YouTube, but you have some of these things that do streaming where you would normally have to go to a website, but we're gonna scrape that out of the way so you don't have to see that. So maybe ABC offers a certain selection of their shows through their website normally, but when you do it through Google TV, you don't see that web part of it, so it's a little more seamless. It's really it's a good idea on the surface, but it's the implementation. If you've ever seen it, you know what I'm talking about. There's the weird issues where you can see stuff around the edges.
No, you're absolutely right. So I am really curious to see it. I hope it actually works, because this is it's gonna be a cool little thing. I don't know how much I'm gonna use it, but in reality, if you only use a certain room as your gaming room, you don't need to get the cable box, because technically this will work as that.
Yeah.
It's just another add-on. If your kid has it in a room and you don't want to really get another cable box, you can have this in there, and it's a TV. It's a cable box. So it'll work well, which I like. Are you getting your alerts?
Stupid iOS. All right. So anyway, this thing it burps and bleeps and farts, and I don't know what the heck.
So what do you think of it so far?
What do I think of iOS?
Yeah.
Well, this is a tough one for me, because I use Windows Phone, which I find to be superior pretty much across the board from a user experience standpoint. The big reason you use iOS is because of that ecosystem. And I completely get that. And at least I can say, for iOS 5, it's mature and it's nice looking. And I get it. There's stuff about this that's sort of inherently unsophisticated, just because they're kind of dragging that old model forward, which I also sort of understand, because they're locked in themselves, in the sense that this has been very successful, so you can't change much. I almost think that they didn't change the screen size on the new device, let alone the entire form factor. And you have to think that there was this huge collection of companies that makes cases and screen overlays and all those little goofy things that people put on their phones, and they just all breathed a sigh of relief that they didn't have to come up with new versions of everything.
I'm still amazed that it's 3.5 inches.
I know that's one of the things that I don't like about this. When you hold the phone normally in one hand in portrait mode, I find the on-screen keyboard on iOS to be hard to use, because it's just a little too small.
Okay.
Compared to, say, a Windows Phone or probably a bigger Android phone, where you just have, when you're talking about this kind of screen and that kind of interface, a couple of pixels, well, not even, it's not pixels so much as it is inches, right? Or, physical dimension makes a big difference.
I'll tell you what made a difference for me. And I got an iPhone for my wife. I got the 4S.
Yep.
And
White, black.
I got it in white.
How big?
16.
In which carrier?
Verizon.
Okay.
The 3G is awful. Now,
Right.
I don't know if it's something that I'm experiencing and where I've been going,
Sure.
but the 3G service on this device has been so bad, it's almost unusable. Now, I don't know if I got a bad phone. I don't know if there's something going on in the neighborhood, in the area. I haven't really traveled far with it, but wherever I've gone, it's been awful while my Droid has been getting better service.
So I don't. It's interesting that that's on Verizon. I was an iPhone user from day one and switched to Windows Phone about 15 months ago when I got a beta device so I could write the book. What I immediately noticed was the phone quality was way better and the connection was way better.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote something about it at the time. Someone just emailed me about this recently, which was a little odd because this was literally from over a year ago. But I said, clearly, we have been blaming AT&T, and Apple has been doing nothing to stop us from blaming AT&T. But part of the problem is Apple, because I don't know if it's bad components they used or just the way they're in there and they don't get good reception or whatever it is. But I'm just using the same SIM, and when I put it in Windows Phone, I don't drop calls.
You don't drop calls.
And when I'm on when I'm on the iPhone, I drop calls all the time. In fact, I dropped so many phone calls over that 3-year period that it became a running joke with everyone in my family. My brother, who uses a BlackBerry and couldn't care less about phones, pretty much, uses this as a source of humor. You'll say something that you don't quite hear, and he'll say, "Sorry, using an iPhone." It's just the joke because it's so bad.
I don't know. I haven't really. I have to ask Jess because I told her to do a speed test throughout the whole day wherever she goes, so she could get a good understanding of what she's getting with this. But I mean, the speed test couldn't even work. I mean, that's how bad it was.
Yeah.
So I've always been screaming about how Android is a little too open, and I still do think it's a little too open. And to me, it's still the enthusiast device. The average person.
But what you also get on Android is there'll be a company that will put some crazy Chinese part in there that violates the FCC standards, and that radio is screaming, probably causing brain cancer every time you use it as a phone. But it will always get a great connection.
There's a great connection with it.
You know what I'm saying? There's stuff like that in Android, and I think that's the dual-edged sword, that is Android.
But I played around with both, and I spent a lot of time with both, and I think the iPhone is a phenomenal device. I think it's still the number one device, in my opinion, because I haven't really played around with the new Windows Phone. From what I've experienced, I still think because of the environment, because of the integration in your entire life with the apps, I still think it's the best phone on the market right now. But
I agree with that. And Apple people read my stuff and they get crazy because there's a little too much.
No, it's unbelievable phone. The display is stunning. I mean, I think it looks great.
Yeah, I agree with this. I mean, I think the thing that we need to understand, or the thing we need to sort of remember, is that most of the world is normal people. Yeah, they're not very technically sophisticated. And the iPhone is a great choice for those people because everything's there. You're never going to want for anything. I mean, other than a decent phone call. But they're just, everything's there. It's just the ecosystem's unbelievable.
But there's a big but.
Well,
and to me, it's the fact that it feels a little too closed.
Oh, see, that doesn't bug me.
Like if I want to get it, if I'm in an app, right, and I want to I want to go into the settings for that app.
Yep.
There's no way of going into settings for the app in the app. You have to go into the settings menu in iOS. And I was thinking, I'm like, I gotta technically close this app down, or I gotta hit the home screen. I gotta do the double click thing. Go open up the iOS settings and then find the app.
It's actually even worse than that because some settings aren't even in the app.
Settings,
there are settings all over the place. I mean, trying to figure out, where notifications appear and what. I mean, these things are everywhere. I mean, sometimes they're app based, sometimes they're notifications. Sometimes you go into settings general and there's stuff in there, and it's, whatever. So this is how things, unfortunately, what was a very simple system to begin with grows organically, and you end up with a little bit of complexity.
I think now, and this is going to be a big problem as iOS grows, and they're going to have to fix this. We are a society with more than one device. Many people have an iPad and they have the same. They're using the same Apple ID. They have an iPod Touch. They're using the same Apple ID and an iPhone. It gets really wacky when you have three devices with the same Apple ID. Because whatever notification I put on my phone is going to my other devices, unless I haven't figured out how to stop it. Another thing is I can't use iMessage because I have whatever iMessage I do.
You mean between your own devices because you can't message yourself.
You can't message yourself.
Yeah.
But whatever message is coming to me on this phone is going to my wife's phone also.
I wanted to just take a screenshot of iMessage because when you use it as like an SMS, MMS thing, it uses those green bubbles, which you can't configure in any way, and I hate that. And then if it goes out over the iMessage service, it's blue, meaning it's a device-to-device, call or whatever, and it doesn't cost you anything, other than the fact that you have to be online somehow.
Yeah.
I contacted someone and said, hey, could you just message me with your device? It actually came through as a text message, not as a blue iMessage. And I finally just said, you know what, screw this. I don't need a picture of this. This is stupid.
But you can't send me a message to my iMessage without being an iMessage, right?
Maybe I could.
Like I've encountered this big problem where I cannot send a message to somebody if they don't have iMessage. And I thought you might be able to.
And there's no way to configure you saying I want it to be this thing first and then this thing or
Yeah.
Okay.
But here's another issue. So you could assign different email addresses to your iMessage.
Yep.
I guess that's their way of doing it per device. So you could have the same Apple ID but a different email address registered to that Apple ID, so you could have iMessage amongst different accounts. I'm assuming, and I could be totally wrong. And the reason why I would be wrong is because iMessage tells me that every single one of my email addresses are taken. And the reason why, because I signed up for FaceTime with about 3 of my email addresses. It uses your FaceTime email as a used email in iMessage.
I never got, my kids have iPod Touches. I never got them to successfully use FaceTime from device to device. It never, ever worked. It was one of the most frustrating things ever.
So in the chat room, they're saying you could create a different iCloud account for each device and still use the iTunes app.
Oh, the same iTunes, right? See, right, that's actually true. And I actually was just looking at that and wondering if that wasn't worth writing an article about, because that might solve a problem I have. But yes, when you log on to your iTunes store account on the device, it does not have to be an iCloud account, or it doesn't have to be the same. Well, there's no real central account.
Well, how do you do that? So now I'm in my
the first time you would probably just go to the settings and then store. Let's look. I mean, the first time you hit the store, you have to log in. You would just log in with the correct thing there. But
this is so whacked out. Right?
No, there's a store. No, there's got to be a. I know there is, because it's the same way that there's an Apple ID. So if you go to settings, store,
in the store,
the bottom thing says Apple ID : and then your Apple ID. And then you can change it.
Settings. Hold on. Let me see. Settings. Store. We're doing tech support now.
This does not have to be.
Okay, so it's not automatically download music, not apps, and no books for me.
No. But at the bottom of the screen, if you scroll,
and then it says my Apple ID.
Yeah. So that's the store account.
Okay. So how do I could change that?
Yep.
But I want to keep the store, but I want to change the updates, the iMessage, and all that stuff. That's my problem. I don't know how to do that. And iCloud is messed up because right now it says my name, but it shows my wife's picture.
On what?
Yeah, on iCloud. I don't know. Maybe I'm doing something wrong here.
All right. So yeah,
maybe
another one of those
problem.
things that's weird. Like iCloud has its own icon in settings. So iCloud is like this thing, but when you go to mail, contacts, calendar, etc., iCloud also has an entry in there that's related to the, and it actually, I believe, brings you to the exact same page. And let me just look to make sure. Yeah, it's the same exact thing. So I don't know. It's just so confusing how they.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to do more homework on this because I feel like I'm missing something. Now, you want to know the wackiest part of this? I couldn't create an iCloud account when I got the phone because I had a Mobile Me account.
Yeah,
and I let my Mobile Me account finish. I didn't renew it. But my Apple ID is my Mobile Me account. So now, when I went to go set up iCloud with that Apple ID, it told me you have to go into Mobile Me and convert Mobile Me to Apple ID.
Yep.
To iCloud. Well, guess what? I can't get into Mobile Me because I don't have Mobile Me anymore. I'm assuming they caught on to this and they fixed it by the afternoon where you were able to convert it over. It didn't give me that message anymore. So I guess it was something that was overlooked. But I think it's a great thing. We like to make fun of things, but I think it's great. But there's a lot of things that...
this thing has gotten
the
complex
integration,
all of a sudden, right?
The notifications, right? The notifications are the big deal. But there's no Facebook integration with your camera, which you would assume they should be, right?
Yeah, I think I have some insight into why that's true. Okay. They did Twitter integration, which is fine, but let's face it. I mean, normal people want Facebook. It's Twitter. If you had to choose between the two on an iPhone, I mean, Facebook would be obvious. Facebook, for reasons I don't understand, is a huge Microsoft partner, and they really do give preferential treatment to Microsoft. And Facebook integration exists in Windows Phone. It got better in the new version. And I have to think this is just one of those that they're throwing them. And, maybe in iOS 6 or whatever, they'll finally add that. And we'll see. But
I mean, some big it's a huge thing that's missing.
Yeah.
And my wife, being an Android user, keeps saying, one thing I really hate is that I can't take a picture and automatically upload it to Facebook. Yep. I have to actually go in the app that I'm using and upload it to Facebook.
Yep.
Which most normal people, again,
so if it makes you feel any better, you can tell her that even though you can do that in Windows Phone, there are limitations to the integration stuff. And even though there are Facebook features that integrated into Windows Phone and they're better than they were before I'd almost have to look at the phone to see what's missing, but better than they were before in 7.5, there's stuff that's missing. So you can do a Facebook check-in directly from your Me tile, but you can't tag other people that you're with. There's no way to say, I am with my wife and my friend and all these people are on Facebook. You can't do it. To do that, as you do on Android or on iOS, you actually have to go into the Facebook app. So they have this kind of half-hearted functionality. So when you take a picture and share it on Facebook, they added the ability to tag people's faces, so you can do that.
Okay.
I want to say it doesn't have... I'm pretty sure it doesn't have the ability to auto set a location, however. So if you imagine one of the other things you can't do on a check-in is say, here's a check-in, I am at this location, I am with these people, and here's a picture. You can't do all of those things on Windows Phone in one whack like you should be able to. So hopefully in the next version, and for whatever it's worth, hopefully in the next version of iOS 5, I would think they're going to have that kind of stuff. Because if you look at the way they did Twitter, it's nice. I just don't think Twitter's a big deal for most normal people.
For many people, it's not. Siri's great. I played around with Siri. I asked it all the most ridiculous questions. What do you think of Siri? Have you played with? No, you haven't.
No, I don't have. No.
It's actually really cool, and it's much more useful.
Good,
it works great in Wi-Fi. 3G, not so much.
Yeah.
It doesn't really work well.
The notion that people are going to walk around talking into their phones, which I know sounds ironic at first, but I mean talking to their phones, not talking via their phones. I don't know. It's annoying enough to me when someone who's nearby makes one of those Walkie Talkie style cell phone calls where it's actually coming over the speaker for some reason.
Yeah, like a Nextel.
I hate those things. Or somebody has like a custom ringtone and the thing's like it's going to town in their bag or something and they're making zero effort to pick it up. So, if you could imagine being on a train or in some room with like 3 people talking to Siri on their iPhones, you can sort of imagine the postal style bloodletting that would occur.
Oh, it's going to be nutty.
Yeah, it just would be awful. So I'm interested to see it. There's no doubt about that. And I'm sure Apple does this stuff well. I mean, I was saying to somebody, it's not alien technology, right? They didn't find it out in Nevada at an alien.
No,
crash.
this is something that we've been using for many years.
Yeah, they bought the company. It used some of the Dragon Naturally Speaking stuff, and Apple has had like a voiceover. They've been working on this stuff for a while, so this is typical Apple in the sense that it's really refined and it looks great.
Yeah.
And and there'll be goofy little Doonesbury style things where people will ask it stupid questions and, oh, look how it answered. Isn't that cute?
Yeah,
And we'll see if people really use it 6 months down the road. But
I made a video when I got it, and I was asking, random questions. Then I asked, where can I find a prostitute? And it gave me the escorts that are around my neighborhood.
Did it really?
Yeah, and actually got picked up by some news thing, and this is what I'm known for now.
Nice.
Actually, I could play it.
Trolling for prostitutes.
Trolling for prostitutes on an Apple product. And the reason why I asked it is because Apple has been so uptight about, the sex stuff, but they allowed it in there. Their comment was that they allowed a lot of Easter eggs, but I don't think this was an Easter egg. It's actually telling me where to find,
it's
hookers, technically.
Right.
Yeah, I have the audio. This is the Newsy website that picked
The latest
it up.
iPhone Siri voice control feature is like the magic mirror on the wall, able to answer any question. But it seems users are asking it everything, but who's the fairest of them all?
This is what I'm known
One
for.
question in particular caught the media's attention.
Where can I find a prostitute?
I found 15 escorts. 12 of them are fairly close to you.
That's
So
awesome.
Yeah. New York Asian escort out is 2.9 miles away from me. But this is what I'll be known for forever. And the quote...
If only you could share that on Facebook.
And they quoted me as well.
To find prostitutes with Siri.
And this is the quote they used.
Isn't that amazing?
Isn't that amazing? This is what I'm going to be known for. I'm going to be... Hopefully one day I'll be very successful. I'll decide I want to run for office, and this will be the end.
This is what comes up.
This is what happens. So,
awesome.
But if you ask for drugs, if you ask for weed, it tells you, it takes you to like one of the those medicinal marijuana places. If you're on the West Coast, over here in New York, it forwards you to a drug rehab center.
Sure.
One mistake I made was when I looked it up. When I first did it, I said call 911, and it said cannot do that for you.
Ooh.
And I said, actually,
Nice.
that's not that bad, because what if you say it by mistake? What if you're playing with it? So I actually was saying, that's not that bad, that it's not going to dial 911 when you
would
say
almost
it.
think it would say, "Are you sure?
Are you sure?"
Is this really an emergency?
But later that night when I said call 911, it said calling 911.
You've just described something, or you've just alluded to something that could be an incredible feature, which is call 911. Are you sure? Is this an emergency? You say yes. That thing calls the police, and it says, "Here are his exact his exact location."
Yeah.
It could provide the information to the police automatically. I mean, I know the phone does this electronically, but how incredible would it be if this thing could talk to the police?
I mean, it would actually be a lot faster with the GPS coordinates and things like that. I think it would be great. But when it didn't do it, I said, "Oh, that's a relief. What if somebody does it?" I'm assuming a lot of people are going to say that to Siri, and Siri does not want to dial 911. Later that night when I tested it, guess what? It dialed 911.
Oh.
And I freaked out, and I shut the phone down. And I'm like, oh my God, the cops are going to come. They're going to think I'm beating my wife. They're going to ask to see her. It's going to be a whole thing. Like, this is what's running through my mind 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
I'm like, I had a beer. Maybe they think I'm drunk. Maybe they think I'm praying. Good thing it didn't dial it, because I shut it really quick.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting, and it does change its answer. So within the next couple months, it's going to evolve. Interesting part of it is that it's a beta.
Yeah. Well, not to be cynical, but Apple products are often released in beta form. So,
but they don't call it a beta. But
they're being
never,
honest about it this time. So
they never call it a beta.
That's true. I looking back on this thing with the iPhone 4S and the way that it was, delayed, it occurs to me that the biggest advances in the iPhone 4S are not the hardware at all. It's the software, and that they even found a software fix for the antenna problem that they caused by putting that antenna on the outside of the device. Instead of actually fixing that, what they did, fixing the hardware, just, doing a new design, they actually fixed it with software. Amazing. So the iPhone 4S, really, the big innovations there are software. There's this stuff in iOS 5, and then in Siri, of course, and then iCloud as well. And I think that explains why it came out when it did, because that software simply was not ready. That had that stuff all been ready by June, July, they would have been on the normal schedule. and that the reason it came out in October was it wasn't ready, and that Siri in beta form, well, that was as good as they could get it in that amount of time, and that, they've obviously been working on this thing for 2 years since they bought the company. They had to get something out this year, and they can kind of stretch the timeline a little bit and say, look, we've had an OS release for the phone every year, and here they are. They have, a phone release every year, literally a new phone every year.
But I mean, I'm not surprised that they didn't do something, crazy. This iPhone 5 that's an amazing redesign. I'm not surprised that they didn't do that. I mean, I was hopeful that they would do that.
No, I'm not either. But I guess what I'm saying is, had that thing been announced on the regular schedule, the schedule they'd always maintained, people would have said, yeah, okay, this makes some sense. As it goes longer, people start to think, well, wait, are we going to get 2 devices? Are we going to, are they holding off because they've got something really big planned? I think they literally were holding off because it just wasn't ready, and it was the software that wasn't ready.
By the way, their earnings fell short for the fourth quarter.
Oh, did they announce that?
Apple Q4 earnings fall short. $28. 28. What is it? I can't even read this. Why is it freezing? 28 what? I can't scroll up now. 28.27 billion during the quarter, which is up from the 20.3 billion from third quarter 2010.
So, they make a shitload of money.
Yeah.
There's no other way to say it.
I mean, that's a lot of money.
A net profit of $6.62 billion on revenue of 28.27. That's bigger than Microsoft. That's humongous.
The company also announced 17.7
so I can see why the thing
iPhones.
fell, because the device numbers are lower than expected. 17 is less than 20.
Yeah.
As we know. Apple sold 11 million iPads, which is actually not great, since supposedly that thing's going gangbusters, and that was supposed to be bigger than that.
It's a whopping 166% increase over last year. But yeah, sure, it's a new device, of course.
You're right. I mean,
year to year. And then only 5 million Macs.
Yeah, less than 5 million. So actually, that number's good. They've always been in the 4+ million range. So that's almost 5. That's got to be a near record.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, I do. 4.89 is a big number for Macs. That's good. And then 6.62 million iPods is got to be very low. Yeah,
but I mean. Who's buying iPods?
That's basically 6 million iPod touches and 0.62 million of the other things.
So, since I said who's buying iPods, and we, it is almost time to wrap it up, but I do want to talk about Motorola's announcement this morning. This evening, I believe it's Google doing the announcement, right? It's Samsung. I know it's a Samsung announcement, but Google's also involved, and I believe ice cream sandwiches are going to be unveiled tonight at 10 o'clock. Eastern for the big announcement. They're having a big conference, and they're streaming it live on youtube.com/Android for the developer site. Right. Motorola had their big unveiling for the Motorola Droid Razr. They have revived the name Razr once again.
Hey, it was such an awesome phone.
It sold one of the best-selling phones they ever had, right?
Yeah.
More than the StarTAC.
It was the original iTunes phone, remember?
I do remember that, yeah. The first iPhone. And they announced this phone, and they also announced a iPod Nano competitor.
What?
The Moto Active. It's the iPod Nano, the little one, and it's an iPod Nano. It's exactly an iPod Nano. It's called the Motorola Moto Active.
What?
MOTOACTV. It's $299.
What?
Yeah. I know, it sounds like a crazy person, right?
What?
It's a real device.
Oh, and it even fits on a watch.
It fits on the watch. It fits on the armband.
Listen, Microsoft has proved this definitively, and let's be very specific here. There is no market for something that looks like an Apple product but is not, in fact, an Apple product. Can we just agree to that?
The Nano is $129. This device starts at $249 for the 8 gig. This is I don't know why they think this is going to sell well.
I don't know why they think it's going to sell at all.
It was a very bizarre press conference. At the end, it was even weirder when the marketing. I don't know what her exact title, but she's Verizon Wireless Marketing, whatever. She came out and told the audience, listen, not every Android phone is a Droid, so understand that. And that was the exact point of why she came out, to tell the audience, listen, stop calling every Android phone a Droid. A Droid is a Droid.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really bizarre, but they announced the Razr, which it's a nice looking phone. It's a very nice looking phone. Paul, you work with a lot of these. I personally think the 4.3 inch phone is a little too big.
Yeah, I do too.
Like, why can't they put out a phone like 3.9 inch?
We're clearly settling on what the right size is for a touch screen on a phone, right?
And it's 4.3, right? I guess it's 4.3.
I think the iPhone is a little too small. And whatever the Samsung Focus is, it's got to be 3.9, somewhere right around there. To me, that's just the right resolution. Or I'm sorry, the right, physical size.
Let's see, Samsung Focus. Let's see the screen size.
Or if you compare it, like a Droid X is too big.
No, it's huge. It's 4.5 inch.
Yeah, too big. Let's see. That's not a
size.
normal.
I can't. It's 800 by 480. It's 4 inch.
It's 4 inch.
Yeah,
okay.
I think that's a great size.
I think it's the right size. I think that's it. That's the normal. I think that's the right size physically, right?
Yeah, but
obviously higher resolution is always great and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you can't argue with the quality of the Retina display and all that kind of stuff. But I just think the screen itself, the physical size of it, is just a little too small.
But it seems like 4.3 is the standard. This is what everybody has agreed on. That 4.3 will be the go-to size, and
it's a little big.
I honestly think it's because of the battery life. They need a bigger device to put a bigger battery in there.
Yeah, so the device is actually big.
Yeah.
We got to put a big screen in because this thing will look ludicrous, as it would.
Yeah, and it's LTE. It's 4.3 inch. It's $299. That again, surprisingly, the iPhone is very competitive and it's cheaper than this device.
Yep.
$299 for this gigantic phone. It's really fast. Dual core 1.2 gigahertz processor. It has 1 gig of RAM, 16 gigs on board, 1080p video. It does everything. The battery is a big battery in this. It's 1800. What's the sign? What do they call the batteries, Paul?
Milliamps or something.
Yeah, milliamps.
Whatever it is.
So it's a big phone. It's coming out next month. But it's the thinnest smartphone ever. That's what they're calling it.
I love these kind of claims.
Except for the bump on the bottom and the top.
Except for the baby bump it has in the back.
I was hoping that this would be a cool device. I need to get a new phone, Paul. I'm in the market. I'm still using my original Droid. My wife got the iPhone. I'm not buying an iPhone.
You gotta come off the ledge, man.
So I'm either getting a Windows phone,
right, which I recommend strongly,
or I have to get. And the only reason right now I'm turned off to Android, because I do want to get ice cream sandwich. There's many reasons, but the main reason is I don't want a 4.5 inch phone in my pocket.
Yep.
I don't. It's way too big for me. It's obnoxious.
Right. It would stick out of your pocket like one of those guys who has a wallet with a chain on it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No, I didn't. You contacted from someone from Microsoft PR, didn't you? About getting a phone?
I did.
So you should at least evaluate a Windows phone. I
haven't heard back.
Oh, okay. Well, ask again. But the best case scenario is wait and see what Nokia does first. That's going to happen. I think it's October 26th or somewhere in there. Yeah, it's coming right up all of a sudden. So I seriously wait for that. I would, if the choice was Android, or if Windows Phone was out of the running, I would go with the iPhone personally, but I wouldn't go Android.
Well, the other phone is the Nexus that's being unveiled. I believe tonight they're going to unveil the Nexus. Okay. The Verizon, and there were leaked images, and it's nice. It's a nice looking phone.
What's the screen on that thing?
That's me. Sorry. Again, I think it's going to be 4.5 inch, 4.3 inch.
Is this thing that's curved and so you hold it to your face and it's kind of curves around?
I don't know if that's the same exact device. I think it was Droid Life, the website. Somebody sent me a link just now. I'm going to look at this. It's curved, but it's not. It doesn't look like that leaked image.
Where's Droid Life?
Droid-life.com. I think they had a leaked image.
Okay.
So it is curved and it's a nice looking phone, but again, it's huge. I
look at this Razr thing and I think nothing of this. To me, it's just it's an Android phone, The Razor. Now, I don't. Where's the? I don't see the.
It's on page 2.
Okay.
I just put a link in the chat
These
room.
Droid phones. God, they're always.
I mean, I hope Ice Cream Sandwich is going to be really good, and I do think they're going to improve on many things that are wrong with the phone. But this is the leaked image of this device. It's a nice looking device, but again, it's a little big.
This is the Galaxy Nexus.
This is the Galaxy, the Galaxy Nexus.
So I again, the one thing to think about is there's a Windows Phone version of this.
There is, yeah.
One of those Windows phones that's coming out this year is basically this hardware. It's going to look a little different, but it's going to be basically the same thing.
But again, is it going to be on Verizon?
Yeah,
when is Verizon going to get 7.5?
Yeah, good question.
That's another issue I have here.
Yep.
I don't know. It's something. So we're going to find out tonight. But I think it's a great looking phone. One thing, I want to know what the weight is of this Razor, because they are saying it's high grade steel, and the same nonsense they did with the Droid. And the Droid is like a holding rocks in your hand. I mean, the thing weighs a ton. If I hit someone, because it's all steel, if I hit someone in the head with this, they're going to the hospital. Possibly they won't recover. I mean, this is like a weapon. It's that bad. So I don't know.
Yep.
But there are massive improvements with Ice Cream Sandwich, and I'm hopefully
I'm curious to see that. I mean, I do feel like they're going to get Android right eventually. Google is full of smart people and all that kind of stuff. So, maybe my infamous hatred of Android will subside over time.
You know what? I was listening to somebody that was talking, and they were saying how the problem with the reason why Apple has been so successful the last couple of years, decade or so, is because they really don't listen to their users. They don't care what the user wants.
Yeah, absolutely.
They tell the user what they want. Google, on the other hand, is throwing in everything. Every feature is available. Every setting is available. You could do anything you want to it. And I'm wondering if they're doing that to see what this leads to and where this goes.
Yeah. I don't know. It's not a good approach. Microsoft already tried this. It doesn't work. There needs to be some curation of the platform. It just has to happen. And Microsoft finally got the religion when their mobile stuff went south. Apple always got that, thanks to Steve Jobs. Android, or Google, I guess, with Android in particular, there doesn't seem to be this sense, even though they seem to have that capability with other products. It seems with Android they're trying to be open to a fault. And I just think eventually it's gonna come back to bite them.
I think the manufacturers have to start pulling back as well. I think that's a major problem because Motorola just released a Droid Bionic, and this was going to be their go-to phone, and the phone is awful. It's an awful phone.
Sure.
It's big, it's bulky, it's slow. The camera's awful. The battery life is awful.
Yeah.
So who knows? Who knows what?
There's a Darwinian thing that can occur in the marketplace certainly, and people will hopefully pick the right phones. The phones that have the right specs, the good cameras, and all that kind of stuff. So
we'll see. All right, we'll see what happens. Time to wrap it up, Paul. It's 5:12.
We're wrapping it up on an Android note.
I know. Did you want to go on a different note?
No, it's okay. It's okay.
The iPhone's camera is not bad.
That's what I hear.
We could say that. All right, that's what.
Listen. There's a very big part of me that desperately wants a smartphone that has an awesome camera, and that for 99% of the stuff that I take pictures of, I literally just have my phone and it works.
Yeah.
And if Windows Phone has a failing today, it's that all of those first-gen devices have terrible cameras.
Yeah, but Nokia is known to have great cameras, so that device.
So that's why this is the great hope here, and we'll see. But honestly, like I said, the iPhone 4S, I don't have one, but based on what I've seen, would satisfy that need, and it is a huge need.
I'll tell you, the camera. I played around with the camera on the iPhone 4S, and it is the best camera I've seen on a device like this. It's as good. I mean, I really don't need to carry around my Canon point and shoot. I could use this, and even in low lighting, it does an unbelievable job.
Yeah, that's what you're looking for. So to me, that's 99, like I said, or whatever percent, some huge percent of the pictures I take are just snapshots. They don't have to be perfect HD resolution, whatever, but they need to look good. I would like, if you share them, you want it not to be this blurry smudge and darkness, which is what a lot of the Windows Phone pictures look like. So I'm sure the iPhone 4S has gotten that right, and hopefully Nokia will get that right for Windows Phone.
Yeah, so we'll see. Go to our website, guysfromqueens.com. Also go to streaming site, gfqlive.tv. Visit Paul's site, winsupersite.com. Great comparison between the iPhone and the iPhone iOS 5 and 7.5 for Windows Phone. That was a really, really good comparison. But you did say it was on a 3GS, and you're going to do one with the new device.
Right. And of course, despite the fact that I've explained this thoroughly, you always get those emails from guys who are like, "Oh, well, it's not a fair comparison." Yeah, it isn't, and I mentioned that. So thanks for reading the article. Yeah,
I did read it. Next week, I'm doing a comparison between the HTC Touch Pro and the new iOS
and the Palm Trio.
Yeah.
You know? Except for one thing, I would just point out to people that Apple still sells the 3GS today, folks. So, sorry for a lot of people, that is a current phone, and I agree with you, but and I will of course test on the 4S when I get it. But the fact remains, a lot of new customers, a lot of those iPhone sales that past quarter were not iPhone 4; they were 3GS because it was so cheap.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Paul, thanks a lot for coming back. From your trip, and
I did it just for you.
I know, just for me.
You
came back.
Thank you for having me back.
And we'll see you next week on What the Tech. Good night, everybody.